bless you tonight. Picking up passengers. I do have to ask this question because I'm more curious than anything else. Did anybody grow up in the era where hitchhiking and picking up hitchhikers was kind of like the norm? Anybody pick up one? Anybody hitchhike? Okay. Just curious. They kind of frown on that these days. Just a little bit, unless you know the person. Like I said, we're going to bounce around a little bit. So, in picking up passengers, we're talking about kind of evangelism and evangelism of the gospel. This evening, we're kind of in two camps usually. You've got those that have received the free gift of eternal life and are utilizing that free gift in some form or fashion, and then you have those that do not know Christ as Lord and Savior. And so as we begin this evening, I want to encourage, if you do not know who Jesus is as Lord and Savior of life, then I would suggest that you get that investigated and taken care of rapidly. Each day we go, we're one day closer to when he comes back. And we'll look at that some in Revenue.
Let there be light.
Yes, there was light. So in Acts chapter 1, verses 8 and 9, you should be most of you should be familiar with this, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. And after he said this, he was taken up before their very eyes. The cloud hid them from their sight. So in light of that, that's basically Christ's last words to his disciples and last words to us as he ended his time on earth at that moment. And so when we go through, and those of you that have lost loved ones, you know that a lot of times, you hear stories of it, a lot of times the last thing that somebody says before they die, or the last time you see them, it was, I saw my great-grandmother, it was about 6 months before she passed away, it was the last time I saw her. So everything they say, you hang on to a little bit, you kind of remember those particular words. And sometimes it's what they don't say. I don't know if you're familiar with the story of Joseph Stalin and his death, what happened on his deathbed. Stalin was basically the founder of the Iron Curtain, if you will, in one of the stalwarts of Russia. And for those of us who are a little bit older or have studied history, then you know that communism was very prevalent. A lot of the countries that we can't pronounce now in the Olympics are countries that used to be under communist control. Stalin basically, his daughter says on his deathbed, he was a staunch atheist. On his deathbed, he basically, at the last moment, raised up in his bed, clenched his fist at heaven, shook it, and then lay down and died. So even to his last moment, he basically did not believe and basically was trying to, in essence, stop his death. So we picture the scene I just read in Acts. So you have, and I talked about this with the students a few weeks ago, so you have Jesus ascending into heaven, and the disciples are looking, and they're looking, and they're looking, and they're still looking. They're looking up the entire time. Now, he said he was going to grant them power, right? So you have to think that quite possibly they're waiting for that power like right then. And so two guys dressed all in white go, hey, why are you still standing here looking up at the sky? Because it's not for, as he says in previous to that, it is not anybody's business but the Father's business as to when the power comes, when the end times come, and when he's to return. So his last words. So this is what I want you to do. There are many ministries within this church. There are many ministries within churches throughout the world. And so we're in the process as a church of setting up some of those ministries and ministry teams. All right, so how many different ministries are involved we're involved with as a church, outside the church, or inside the church, that are involved in things other than what our main objective was that Christ just gave us in that verse. If you think about it now, you go, well, how does the decorating committee or the flower committee, or ministry team or whatever, how are those supposed to share the gospel and make disciples throughout all the nations? Well, if you're on those ministry teams, first of all, they make the sanctuary and the areas look very nice. Secondly, that's a very easy team to invite somebody who's not a Christian come and be a part of. Activities is another one that can be done. You bring somebody that's not a Christian, and you have the opportunity then to share Christ with that person as you're doing work for the Lord. So it's really taking whatever ministry team that you have in your mind that you like, or anything that you like, and figuring out outside the box, how can I use that to glorify God and to share the gospel in particular. So we have, how many of you still call that the Great Commission? Great Commission. You know what the Great Commission is? All right, I'm going to call it the Great Command. No? Really? A little bit? Never heard that? Well, I'll tell you, tonight we're going to call it something different because we just like to do that. We like to change things. Let's call it the cause. The cause. C-A-U-S-E, cause. Cause for Christ. The cause. So, how do we do that? Well, first of all, let me ask you this question, because I know some of you probably have a great answer for this. How should we not share the gospel? I mean, somebody comes up and asks you, hey, where do you go to church and punch them? Yeah, that would probably be bad. Probably won't do that. Turner! Yeah, I've heard that used. Was it successful? Come on, see, I'm counting on you. Condemning what? Okay. Condemning. Taking a position of, I know better than you, or I'm smarter than you, or I'm going to a much nicer place than you are. Have you been born again? I was watching, I think it was, love God with all your heart. And then the next sentence said, give your heart to Christ. So am I supposed to love him with my heart? Am I supposed to give him my heart? Or what am I doing here? And then the one I was invite Jesus into your heart. So if you have a heart transplant, does that mean you have to do it again? And we laugh and you look at me and say, that's just the dumbest thing you've ever heard. But in reality, if you are somebody that doesn't know what all these terms, the definitions of all these particular terms, it sounds really silly. And they're unsure of what it is that you're asking them to do. And we get nervous at times when we're doing it, so we start combining sentences that don't really make even any sense in church. So we move through. So, arguments. Yes. I've had my Facebook hijacked, and two people arguing back and forth off just one comment I made for days. I just sat back, popped some popcorn, and watched. So, there's a question that is, we're all talking about Christ to basically share the gospel. But what are some reasons why we do not share the gospel? Well, I know you're going to talk a little bit of that in your small groups when we break up, but I found a couple that I think probably fit. One, fear. I'm not really going to get into detail. You guys can get in detail a little bit later. So you have fear. Don't feel or think that they're qualified. Number 3 is important, especially in the school systems today. They want to keep their jobs. Number 4, complacency, lack of compassion, and passion and spiritual laziness. Worried about political correctness. Influenced by worldly culture, such as you shouldn't force something on to somebody else. Lack of training, don't know how to share. Not strong Christians with strong faith. Few people believed what they said they believed in. They believed in some false beliefs. They don't know the gospel clearly and rightly. And number 12, which kind of hit home a little harder, they don't see the example from church leaders. All right, now comes the participatory part. Everybody have a pen or a paper, I hope. If not, draw it on your hand. All right, so on your paper, draw a circle. If you've got your notebook for the week, there's some back pages you can use to draw a circle on your paper. So at the top of the circle, write the word prayer. About the 4 o'clock position on your circle, write pursue. On about the 7 o'clock position on the circle, write persuade. And then in small letters, doesn't mean they're important, but in small letters, between the words persuade and prayer, write the letters A, B, C. Once you've written those 3 words, under the words or around the words, beside the words, however you've got your circle, draw 3 lines by each word. Don't do it by the ABC. So you draw 3 lines by prayer, 3 lines by pursue, and then 3 lines by persuade. Like you're going to write, because you're going to write somebody's name on some of those lines. So you're just drawing a straight line across underneath the. You go. Then they do it.
Can you get mine too?
No. The first one's free. I charge extra after that. All right. So once you've done that, then I want you in that, especially in the first set where it says pray, write in 1, 2, 3. I mean, some of you have more than that maybe, but write in 2 or 3 names of people who you know that are friends of yours that are unsaved that you want to begin to pray for in that regard. If you do not have any friends that are unsaved, you need to expand your friend list. You really need to expand your friend. That is not true. There's about 30 of them behind you. All right. And your mom's got them. All right. So expand your list. So go ahead and you write down 2 or 3 names there as we're going through, and some may come to your mind later as we're talking. So those are people you want to begin to pray for. We'll kind of break this down a little bit more. Those people you want to begin to pray for, having opportunity to have a conversation with. All right? A conversation, a spiritual conversation. So as you find opportunities to have those spiritual conversations with people, with those 3 on your list, then, because you want to pursue that conversation. All right? So you're moving the names over into the pursuit. So you've seen opportunities, you start to take advantage of opportunities to have these conversations. Now the names move over into the pursue column, or the 3 lines you have, or 2 lines, or whatever, by the word pursue. Because now you're going to start to pursue those conversations, pursue those deep spiritual conversations with them. So we have opportunities as you pursue. You begin to have more opportunities for the conversation to go deeper with these individuals. And so when we have the opportunities to move deeper in a conversation, then you're moving them over into the persuade column. And all of this with the hope and prayer that over time we'll be able to persuade our friends to the ABCs. Now, what are the ABCs? All right, these are different ABCs. Very similar but different, because admit, believe, confess. I remember when the last one used to be commit. Admit, believe, commit. You committed to Christ. But anyways, so in this setting, like your ABCs, your A is you're praying that as you work this circle, if you will, that the individuals will accept Christ. Then you're in prayer that they'll belong to a church. It doesn't have to be this church. It has to be plugged into a church. And I don't mean attending, I mean plugged into the church so they can continue to grow. And then commit to basically what I call the cause. Basically commit to the cause of making disciples as well. So you're praying for them you're praying that you can have these conversations As you start having opportunities to have conversations, you move over to pursuing, because you're going to pursue these conversations. Then you move over into persuade, because basically you're trying to persuade them. So it's an opportunity to kind of focus a little bit better. Sometimes we look at a situation, or we have friends that we know when I say we got like 2 and 3 and 7 and 8 and 12, and before you know it, you've got this long list, and it's really hard to, I don't want to say prioritize because that's not right, but it's really hard to really get a semblance of some continuity and order and a plan, if you will. It's not just throwing darts on a wall that has a bunch of your friends' names on it and seeing which one hits, and that's who you're going to talk to today. It's really formulating almost a schedule, if you will, of okay, this morning I'm praying for these 3, and now I'm going to try to work these 3 conversations. You're not ignoring everybody else, but you're really trying to focus down, because if we spread too much, it's like in doing schoolwork. The school starts tomorrow, and the students are extremely happy about that. The parents are smiling bigger, but the kids are happy, I'm sure, inside somewhere deep. The opportunity, when you sit down, if you have 3 classes that give you a test for the same day, and you haven't studied throughout the week, what happens? You try to cram all this into one time, and you lose focus on the different subjects. Not that any of the students here have ever done that. They are outstanding students, and we expect all of them to make straight A's. All right, no pressure. So prayer is always the first thing, and we always go to prayer first, even though sometimes we try all other options first. We go to prayer. And so George Mueller, I think some of us know who that is, prayed daily for whatever they needed for that day. And he had 6 unbelieving friends that he prayed faithfully for over several decades. 4 of them trusted Christ while Mueller was alive. 2 trusted Christ at his funeral. Anybody know, other than maybe Jeff and Troy, who Edward Kimball is? I give a $100 prize. Yep. All right. Edward Kimball was a Sunday school teacher who helped lead Dwight Moody to Christ. We know who Dwight Moody is. All right. He's an evangelist. Wilbur Chapman was converted at a Dwight Moody evangelistic meeting. You know who Wilbur Chapman is? I did not. Wilbur Chapman later helped Billy Sunday, whose ministry led to the conversion of Mordecai Ham, who led Billy Graham to Christ. I had read that once before, and I didn't have all the names in the right spot. All right, has anybody heard of Billy Graham? Some of the students maybe not. They know Franklin Graham a little bit better. So prayer is the first step. So you can see one person and a Sunday school teacher taking a moment, didn't try to share the gospel. And this is a little side note here. If the gospel presentation is not part of everything that we do, whether it's fall festival, whether it's Sunday school, and even adult 8 Sunday school, the gospel should always be presented. The last church I was at, we had a gentleman who was 82 years old that gave his life to Christ. And so you just don't know. And you never know who's in there. And people think they know the Lord and can go years and years and years, and they don't. So we continue to present that. So prayer as an essential first step. We're going to run. Let's see, prayer is a simple first step. First, everybody can pray. If you praying unreached friends seriously, there are no secret passwords or magic formulas. It's praying with passion. That's the key. You have to pray with passion. If you're not praying with passion, you're not praying for the lost, and your heart's not breaking for those that are lost, then you really need to go back and refocus just a little bit, because that is the key. It's brokenness. It's getting us down to the point that the only thing we can think about is praying for those that are lost. So Then we go to pursuing. So we want to pursue with love. You've heard the old saying, I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care, which is extremely wise words. I just want to, when pursuing with love and sharing the gospel lovingly, 1 Corinthians 13, heard a lot here at weddings mostly. I'm going to read it in the Message paraphrase to see if it strikes maybe a different look at it. So, no matter what I say, what I believe, and what I do, I'm bankrupt without love. Love never gives up. Love cares more for others than for self. Love does not want what it doesn't have. Love does not strut. It doesn't have a swelled head. It doesn't force itself on others. Isn't always, quote, me first. Doesn't fly off the handle. Doesn't keep score of the sins of others. Doesn't revel when others grovel. Doesn't take pleasures in the flowering of truth. Puts up with anything. Trusts God always. Always looks for the best. Never looks back, but keeps going to the end. But for right now, until that completeness, we have 3 things to do to lead us toward that consummation. Trust steadily in God, hope unswervingly, love extravagantly, and the best of the 3 is love. Loving extravagantly look like sharing our faith. How would loving extravagantly look like if we apply it to sharing our faith? How do we share our faith? You know, if you look at the adjectives, we evangelize efforts, and we are actually drenched in agape love. Determined, selfless, humble, considerate, patient, forgiving, truthful, trusting, positive, all-encompassing, tireless, unswerving, hope-filled. That is the way we should handle as far as with love. And then finally, with persuade, we live in a live and let live culture. And persuade is a word that kind of seems out of sync with the way culture is, and with embracing diversity and nurturing individuality. And so if you look at that word, you're kind of trying to figure out why the use of persuade. Definition of persuade: to move by argument, entreaty, or expostulation to a belief, position, or course of action. And the second definition is plead with and urge. Plead with and urge. The Greek word for persuade is used 8 different times in the New Testament in direct connection with evangelism. And it's not a used car salesman type of persuasion. No offense to used car salesman. But it's a convincing appeal to the heart of the unbeliever. And it's the same approach that Paul used when he said in 2 Corinthians 5:20, we are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. We implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. So how do you do it? I'm going to challenge in small groups to look at some different ways that you can share the gospel. There are people in here that have been doing it for years and years and years and doing it well. And there's some people that are looking to learn how to do it. And so if we break into our small groups this evening, or you can do it this morning too, if you're in Sunday school, then kind of look at some of those ways to share Christ with those that are around you, those you'll come in contact with going forward.